at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Happy St George's Day and welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Christopher Hope. Coming up.
Your question is completely misplaced.
That's what's on the table.
I'm really appalled.
Stay tuned to find out what made Nigel Farage so appalled by my question. He also said this.
I never understood how you could be patriotic and at the same time be happy to hand away chunks of self-control to a bunch of old men who you can't vote for in Brussels.
Also on a potential Reform Conservative pact at the election, mooted by Robert Jenrick, he said this.
I would only do a deal with people who I could trust. I don't trust them.
And in another GB News exclusive, 8 illegal immigrants have arrived in the UK with stab wounds. Our exclusive videos will expose how hundreds are heading to Calais, waiting for calm weather, while, once again, the French police look impotently on. I want to hear your thoughts on my interview with Reform UK's leader, Nigel Farage. Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say. But now let's get the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Chris, thank you very much and good evening. The top stories: inter-gang rivalries have led to an alarming rise in migrant violence as 8 illegal immigrants have arrived in the UK with stab wounds in the last 12 months. The tensions come as thousands of migrants prepare for a huge summer surge in small boat crossings. Just this week, 1 migrant was stabbed to death and 2 others seriously injured in separate incidents around Calais. One senior maritime security source told GB News the increase in violence is extremely concerning. The Prime Minister has accused Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch of being a spectator, not a leader, on women's rights this afternoon, before saying it was time to lower the temperature on the trans debate. It follows a Supreme Court ruling defining a woman as an adult human female based on biological sex. The Prime Minister, who once said trans women are women, now says the ruling brings clarity. This afternoon, Badenoch urged him to apologise to ex-Labour MP Rosie Duffield, calling her very brave for speaking out before leaving the party.
Tells people what they want to hear. He only tells people what they want to hear. He is a weather vane who twists in the wind. He cheered an ideology that denied safe spaces to women and girls because he thought it was cool to do so. He hounded a brave female MP out of his party for telling the truth he accepts now. And now he is hiding behind the Supreme Court judgment. And isn't that because he doesn't know what he actually believes?
Pope Francis' coffin has been transferred today to St Peter's Basilica, where it lies in state, ahead of his funeral on Saturday. The coffin departed from the chapel of the Casa Santa Maria and proceeded through Santa Marta Square and the square of the Roman proto-martyrs, entering the basilica through the central door. Prince William will attend the funeral on Saturday, marking his first time representing the monarch at a global funeral. He'll be joined by world leaders including the Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer and US President Donald Trump. If you're watching us live on television now, you're seeing live pictures from inside St Peter's Basilica, where mourners are gathering, as the Vatican expects up to 250,000 mourners at the service for the People's Pope. Elsewhere, a deal to resolve the bin strike in Birmingham could be in touching distance, according to the Unite Union. The action by members of Unite, which began on the 11th of March as part of a dispute over pay, has seen thousands of tonnes of rubbish go uncollected and warnings of a public health emergency in the city. Talks to end the strike are to involve the conciliation service ACAS for the first time, signalling that an agreement could be close. And the UK government's borrowings soared to almost £152 billion last year, the second highest in a decade. New ONS figures reveal that's £14.6 billion more than predicted, piling the pressure on already stretched public finances. Economists have said the country ended the year on a poor footing, while now hurtling towards further challenges with US President Donald Trump's trade tariffs. Those are the latest headlines. For now, more from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Christopher Hope, and happy St George's Day. Here's a message from the 89-year-old Royal Town Crier, Tony Appleton.
Ho yay, ho yay, ho yay, welcome to GBN Tonight. God save the King!
Absolutely, God save the King. Now, last night the Prime Minister got in on the action by hosting the first ever St George's Day reception in 10 Downing Street, where he said that Labour is the patriotic party.
There are people trying to sow division in our communities. People taking the red and white of our flag, but they want to take it with them as they throw bricks at businesses and our police. The day after the terrible Southport incident last year, we could see in the aftermath of that what it really is to be English.
Complete with soundtrack. That was Number 10's video, of course. Was that a direct dig at Reform and its leader, Nigel Farage? Well, earlier today, I asked the man himself. Here's what he told me. Nigel Farage, thank you for joining us today on GBN Tonight, St George's Day. Happy St George's Day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, isn't it wonderful? It's, you know, the English Saints' Day. And, I mean, all my adult life, I've been out to extraordinary big St George's Day lunches and dinners, and I've spoken at a few of them. And it's really been funny because sort of political class, you can say you're a Welsh nationalist, that's absolutely fine. Scottish nationalist, absolutely fine. Irish nationalist, well, not quite so fine, but OK. English, you know. And, of course, the Labour Party have had this total aversion to the St George's flag. And we all remember the famous, infamous Emily Thornberry tweet on the day of the Rochester by-election, it's a few years ago.
Which you were fighting with UKIP back then?
Yeah, and we won it on the day.
We won on the day?
Yeah, Mark Reckless won the seat on the day. And it's as if to the North London intellectuals, I mean, the very thought of Englishness is almost abhorrent.
She tweeted a picture of the flag hanging outside a building with a white van in front of it.
Yeah. Yeah, a hard-working...
She never said what she meant, but it seemed to be a kind of...
Well, we knew
it seemed to be... oh, dear.
Oh, yeah, oh, look at these awful people. I mean, gosh, he's got a van. I mean, hasn't he got an EV? You know,
yes,
it was North London snobbery. That was what came across.
But that was back in 2013, 2014.
2014, that was. And now, of course, where we as a political party, you know, and we're doing very well in Wales and we're growing in Scotland, but we are unashamed of the English side of our party, and you get the feeling that what's happening today in Downing Street with the flag of St George and all the rest of it, and Starmer saying he wants to reclaim the flag, basically the Labour Party and the Prime Minister are dancing to Reform's tune. That is what is going on.
That's certainly where the political battle right now in politics is, between what you're saying and what Labour are trying to say back to you, I think. That's where the debate is. I think are really running to catch up. That's how it seems to me.
I think Morgan McSweeney says, "Oh my goodness me, this reform lot are really starting to hurt us."
So don't you think? So last night in Number 10, the Prime Minister said, didn't he, that the battle for the flag is important. He referred to the riots in Southport and talked about the St George's flag. He said, "We need to wrench it out of the hands of those who wish to divide this nation and reclaim it for good." What did he mean by that? Why is he linking fighting with the English flag?
His obsession with the so-called far right comes through in almost everything he says and does, and here it is again. Here it is again. You know, and he's really saying, well, the flag is just the preserve of skinheads, and we can't allow that. But
he's trying to say we're all English, but we don't want it to be allow those groups to have it for themselves.
Too late, Prime Minister. Too late. Yeah. We're there already. We're there already. We're out and proud as English, and as I say, we got Welsh and Scottish and the other things that make up our party. They are scared. They know that there is a patriotic, old Labour, what we used to call working class, in the Midlands and the north of England, who are increasingly attracted by what reform has to say. They are in full panic mode. Morgan McSweeney is trying to pivot the Labour Party in a different position.
He's, of course, the PM's chief aide. Some say that people who voted Remain are not as patriotic as Leavers. What do you say to that?
Well, I never understood how you could be patriotic and at the same time be happy to hand away chunks of self-control to a bunch of old men who you can't vote for in Brussels. I could never understand it. There are other, I mean, to be fair, there are those that would say, no, we believe it was in our national interest, and if at any point we wanted to change it, we could. But let's put it this way. A lot of people who were believers in the European project, and it was never more than 20% of the population, all right? But a lot of it was in Westminster and the political class. A lot of those who believed in the European Union, believed in global governance, didn't really believe in us as a country. And by definition, I think they were unpatriotic. I wouldn't apply that to the next 30-odd% of the population.
The major, your 50%.
Who thought our interests were better served being in than out.
Yeah.
But at the core of it, I mean, basically Edward Heath and others believed that the existence of nation-states had caused World War I and World War II. And therefore, if you effectively get rid of the nation-state, we'll live in peace forever. That is what they believed. What they misunderstood was a much more important philosophical point, which is this. Nation-states, provided they're democratic, don't go to war with each other. There is not one single example of a mature democracy fighting another. So what we should have pushed after 1945 was democracy being strong within nations and all being part of a trade club and all the rest of it, but not to surrender national control.
Well, that's where the common market started in the
that's
mid-70s
why,
through to like 1998 or 1990.
Yeah, and it wasn't really till Maastricht that we fully understood that we're going to get a new flag and a new anthem and all the rest of it.
Well, that was part one of my interview with Nigel Farage. Stay tuned for part two. Now, joining me to discuss this is my panel tonight, the former Labour MP Lloyd Russell Moyle and the former Conservative MP and former Tory whip Heather Wheeler. Thank you for joining us both tonight. Has Keir Starmer overdone it on St George's Day, Lloyd Russell Moyle? You've got bunting all over Number 10. He's got St George's flag on top. He's holding the first ever event to mark St George's Day. Is he doing it because he's worried about Reform UK, as Farage claims?
I must admit, I can't quite believe it's the first ever event.
Number 10 told us it yesterday.
St George's Day. Yeah, it's one of these things that every party will come up with a first ever because the other one was done in the garden rather than in or something. But
anyway, put to one side.
I'm sorry, I mean, you're being slightly incredulous there, I'm afraid. I think on all first evers, and all parties do it. But look, I don't think you can ever overdo celebrating where you're from. And I think where you're from is complex and multi-layered. I am a passionate advocate for Sussex and an element of Sussex nationalism. I don't mean separatism, but I mean being proud of my nation of Sussex. We were 400 years an independent nation before Wessex invaded. I'm proud of being English.
Good.
I'm dreadfully proud of being British. And often when I was working at the UN, I felt more British even than when I was here, because you notice it in contrast. doesn't mean that you dislike. And I'm also dreadfully proud of being European, and I was dreadfully proud when we were in the European Union.
We'll come to Brexit in a second.
The political body that represented that. So I think you can be proud of all those levels. So I don't think you can overdo it. I think that's a strange question to ask.
Well, because it hasn't been done before by the Labour side. I mean, it seems to me that St George's...
It's never been done by anyone before.
George's, correct, fair enough. St George's Day is now being marked. And was Keir Starmer right or wrong to mention the Southport riots? He talked there about wrenching back, reclaiming our flag. I mean, this is it's quite a dramatic thing to say, maybe a bit aggressive about the flag. Whose flag is it?
Well, the Labour English network has existed for a long time. John Denham was a leading thinker in it, and you remember Billy Bragg talked about New England,
progressive patriotism.
And of course, the Labour Party the Labour Party song, its official song, is Jerusalem.
But on the point
that
about
we sing,
Lloyd,
we sing at the end of every party conference, which is about building a perfect country in our beautiful land of England.
The Southport riots last night, was that appropriate?
Well, I think what he's trying to say is that there's always been a contention over what it means to be British. And Labour, actually, I think you're wrong, Labour has always played in that field. When Blair came in, it was called Britannia. It was all about how do we make sure Britain is... we're happy with the Union Jack, the Spice Girls can wear it as an outfit. That was the mood that we were in, and that led up to the Olympics and that feeling at the Olympics opening ceremony. I think now we're in a time where people are interested in the slightly lower level, but I don't think it's any different from what Labour always does, makes us comfortable with who we are.
There you have it, Lord Russell-Moyle, thank you. Heather Wheeler, is Lord Russell-Moyle right? Or in fact, as Nigel Farage said there, that Labour and the PM are dancing to Reform's tune by marking St George's Day?
I think Lloyd is being incredibly kind. And one of the nicest things about coming on this programme is how kind Lloyd can be. So, of course, it's nonsense. Everybody knows it's flim-flam, and everybody knows that, fine, when Blair did Call Britannia, that was because he couldn't have the England flag, because that had been associated with a different end of the political spectrum. So if the idea that Starmer is going to take back the England flag, I mean, it's nonsense.
He wants to wrench it back, but isn't Lord Russell-Moyle right? The Tories never did this. The first ever event in 10 Downing Street, we're told by Number 10.
I've got some lovely ex-colleagues who are running a business, and what they've been selling is England bunting, and they've been doing very nicely, thank you. So I think there's room for all of us on this pitch.
Just very, very quickly, if you vote Remain, are you less patriotic than a Brexiteer, Lord Russell-Moyle?
Well, I voted Remain because I believed it was best for our country, best for Britain, best for England, and that's what I still passionately believe.
Thank you. Heather Wheeler?
No, we needed to take back control.
OK. Thanks to my panel. Well, more of Farage later, but coming up after the break, a GB News exclusive: violence among small boats migrant gangs is on the rise, with 8 illegal migrants arriving in the UK with stab wounds over the past year. I'm joined by our home and security editor, Mark White, who broke this story earlier today. And stay tuned for part 2 of my interview with Nigel Farage, when he tells us what the late Pope told him. That's all.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are we witnessing a crisis in motherhood and in parenting more generally? From American singer Chappell Roan making the headlines for saying that none of her friends with children are happy, to this piece from The Telegraph where an anonymous woman admits to regretting having children. There does seem to be a current trend of talking parenthood down.
Joining us now is the Professor of Family and Parenting Research at the University of Kent, Ellie Lee. Ellie, how much of this is due to cultural factors, and is it just really about the bottom line costs of parenting?
No, I don't think it is just about costs. Mothers particularly, but I also think men as well, are finding it harder to see how you give meaning to this experience. The Telegraph article I thought was very interesting. I mean, there's some points raised in it about the ambivalence of motherhood.
What really struck me about this piece in The Telegraph was where the lady says she had this difficult labour, 47-hour labour, And then all she could think of afterwards was, can someone please take the baby away so I can sleep, until it dawned on me that I was responsible and I had to get up. And isn't this the heart of the problem, that in times gone by, extended family and friends surrounded a woman after she'd given birth, taking all the other responsibilities of life off her so that she could focus on her physical recovery and on looking after the baby. And that was normal for thousands and thousands of years. And now just suddenly we expect a woman who's just gone through a really biologically difficult process to just get up and do it all and carry on.
I think that's very true. I mean, that whole narrative is extremely lonely. And what you get a sense of when you read it is that she feels very isolated, and there's not much around her, which is helping with this. And it's a really pat phrase, it takes a village, but it does take a village.
The People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Christopher Hope. Now, a GB News exclusive for you. Inter-gang rivalries have led to an alarming rise in migrant violence, as 8 illegal migrants have arrived in the UK with stab wounds in the past 12 months. The boiling tensions come as thousands of migrants prepare for a huge summer surge in small boat crossings. Plus, our exclusive videos show how hundreds of migrants are heading to Calais while the French police simply look on. Bringing this GB News exclusive right now is our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, great to have you here on the show. Thank you for joining us. Tell us about the violence you've detected.
Well, Christopher, we've known that violence has been increasing for some time, but it has reached very significant and worrying levels now. A couple of years ago, actually, I first reported on a migrant arriving in Dover with stab injuries, and that was a big story because it was unusual and clearly very worrying. But now, in the past year, to have confirmation from the Home Office to our Freedom of Information request that 8 migrants have arrived in separate incidents with stabbing-related injuries over the past 12 months is very significant. 5 of those who were injured before they'd even got onto the boat, so fights that had taken place probably near the beaches in the scramble to get on the boats. And then 3 others, we understand, were injured as a result of disputes on the boats themselves. But of course, if that's what we're seeing here on this side of the channel, it's a real indication of just how violent things are getting on the other side of the channel. We've been hearing actually from sources, even from the British government, expressing concern for quite some time about just how violent things were getting and how the police were being targeted in particular. Just this week, there was 2 very serious stabbing incidents around the Calais area. In Calais town itself, where a multiple stabbing took place. A Sudanese migrant with severe chest injuries after being stabbed multiple times. And another migrant also suffered multiple stab injuries. And then in Saint Omer, again in the Pas de Calais, we got news of a fatal stabbing just a couple of days ago. A young migrant from Afghanistan, just 19 years of age, stabbed to death in a public park in that town.
Shocking stuff, Mark White. And tell us about this surge you're expecting, and you've got your spies down the south coast expecting a surge in small boat crossings in coming months.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, it's incredible that even over the winter months, we've had such an influx of small boat migrants at record levels. But a lot of these people smugglers have gone away, but are then coming back. We've got one video that we can show you now that shows a group being led by Albanian people smugglers. Just take a look at this. Now, this group is being led by these Albanians through the local countryside to avoid the main roads. And this Albanian group actually have been in Italy, we're told, over the winter months and have come back for peak season in the summer. We can also show you other video, which is off a now familiar site, the feeding station in one of the coastal communities. NGOs, charities feed the many hundreds of migrants who turn up every day, at least a couple of times a day, for their food in that area. And another video that I think is really startling because it just shows the numbers of people out in the towns. And here they're taking advantage of a free bus service. Take a look at this, shot from a passing vehicle. Now, what's notable about this as we continue to look at the shots are, yes, of course, the migrants there in very significant numbers all around that bus stop waiting for a free bus down to the beach for the launch of their boats or to the feeding stations. But in addition to that, Chris, there are police vans there just on the other side of the road, but they can't do anything because it's not illegal for them to be there and, of course, to take advantage of the free bus service. And that feeds into a lot of the concern that people have about the fact that the French police just do very little in the way of law enforcement to stop these small boat launches. Another piece of video that we can show you on a beach showing a boat launch, but this particular boat that was attempting to launch had difficulties with the engine and it couldn't launch. But the French police there don't even get their feet wet. There's a few officers just gesticulating at the migrants to come back off the boat because it's not going anywhere. But normally the tactic is if they get an opportunity with a boat on the beach like that or just getting into the water, it's all about getting up and puncturing it, but they're not doing that.
Extraordinary images there, Mark White. Can I ask you where they come from and who makes them? Are they done as a kind of marketing tool to try and encourage more migrants to pay thousands of pounds and cross the channel? Or, I mean, they are deeply embarrassing for the authorities, certainly.
Well, yes, well, they're made to order, most of them, in backstreet factories in China. They're then usually shipped through Turkey into Germany and then distributed to locations around the northern coast. It's a well-worn sort of supply line, which is going to take an awful lot of dismantling by law enforcement in the UK and elsewhere.
White, thank you for that really important exclusive there. Thank you, and keep bringing it to us at GB News, of course. And thanks to my panel. Now, coming up next, while many fear the fallout of escalating trade wars following Trump's tariffs, one very British business is bucking the trend. I'll be joined by the boss of that very business right after this break. And do stay tuned for part 2 of my interview with Nigel Farage when he says if he fancies a merger with the Tory party. Stay tuned.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're
the failure
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Christopher Hope. Now, a quick apology on the last clips there from Mark White and those videos of migrants. There may have been a hand gesture you spotted on one of the films. We'd like to apologise for any offence caused by that. Now, moving on. While many fear the fallout of escalating trade wars, one UK business is backing the trend and bucking the trend even. Just Jigsaws Limited, founded in 1973, produces over 5,000 puzzles every single week, more than half of which are exported overseas. And thanks to tariffs brought in by President Donald Trump in the past few weeks, business is now booming as international buyers shift away from American products and turn to British-made goods. The company currently employs 10 people, and for the first time in 4 years, wants to hire again. Well, I'm delighted to be joined in the studio right now by John Trousdale, the owner of Just Jigsaws. John, welcome. These are fantastic. My children, when a lot younger, would have loved these terrific jigsaws. You must be delighted by the industry that you're seeing around the world.
It's really good. My granddad started it, so it is quite nice to be able to do it with third generation. And now we're seeing more business. I've actually just hired someone a few weeks ago, which is nice as well. We're the only ones in the country left now, so it is such a craft. These particular ones I'm making for a company in Canada, which I'm doing a bit more work now because they can't get American products anymore.
Yeah. And they're wood-cut jigsaws? They're really sort of tactile.
Yeah, everything we make is handmade.
Wow.
All the stuff we get is produced in the Midlands as well, boxes, prints, glue.
And it's all here because it says British made very proudly on the front there. And I guess nowadays so many of these manufacturers have outsourced their production to China or elsewhere and may now be regretting it.
Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully it comes back. Our trade's quite niche. We're the only ones left. It'd be really nice to see it come back into the country.
It's exactly what people might think is a quality British product to me. And you've seen interest since the tariffs came in. How many more orders are you getting or sales?
I've actually not had any more orders. These Canadian ones, I'm having more interest because they want the stuff to come from obviously not America now because they have
So
to
they're
pay
boycotting
more.
America.
Yeah.
So there's both a choice being made by buyers to boycott America, as well as you're helped by the...
And then over here, I'm hoping it'll help because people might start thinking about buying British again. And I've had inquiries from America, which before I never had, because Chinese stuff is it's cheap. It's really cheap. The quality's not the same, but they don't always care about that.
But the scale of those tariffs are 135%. Is that across the board, even on jigsaws, or is it only in some other areas?
It looks like it's everywhere, which hopefully for me it helps.
And sentiment, it's worrying people, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. But, I mean, that's where we're lucky in regards I get everything made in England. I think the only thing that comes outside made is the actual timber comes from Ireland.
Yeah.
Everything else is made in, well, it's in the Midlands, so I don't actually have to worry about the tariffs.
And you make it in a factory in...
Yes, yeah, in Alfton, Derbyshire. We've been there for 30 years now, but my granddad started it in Luton over 50 years ago now.
I wonder if we might see more of this in the future. We've got a coral reef one here. I wonder if we might see more of these quality British products being made here. That's certainly the idea of reshoring manufacturing work.
Yeah, it'd be really nice to have it back. We know quite a lot of people that have either wound down or going bust over the last... Because it's been a hard 3-4 years for everyone.
How have you held your margins against Chinese competitors?
Not
Difficult.
very well. Yeah. We deal with schools and nurseries, so they prefer quality over tat anyway. So in that regards, it's fine. But it is difficult. I mean...
Yeah.
And obviously there's more taxes as well.
And you're getting the support you want from the government, are you? Jonathan Reynolds is a business secretary. This kind of thing he might be applauding.
Well, I hope he applauds it, but if we get much support, I don't know. It'd be nice to have like a Minister of Manufacturing because we don't have one.
Yeah.
That'd be really handy. Maybe get some bits and bobs saying if you buy from British company, you get certain release. I don't know. But things like that would be nice. But at the minute, there's not that much help for actual manufacturing. That's why there's not many about now.
But it's so important, I think, everyone is saying that we should be making more things in this country. And not even, I mean, there's no question of security matters involving wooden jigsaws, but certainly, go through the stream of British steel and defence and needing to make our own steel. I mean, right down to the smaller manufacturing type.
But small and medium manufacturers are the backbone of the country, and they don't get any help, really.
No.
It's not hard. Like,
and what do you want from the government then? Do you want help with exporting or...?
Exporting would be helpful. Maybe when we deal with public sector companies, make it a bit easier for us to tender for it.
Yeah.
They could help us with... We were lucky enough to have a grant once, but making grants more available for small and medium companies.
Yeah.
Rate relief.
Yeah.
There's
lots of areas there, aren't there?
Yeah.
Well, it's fascinating. I think they're amazing. If my children were a lot younger than they are now, they would love playing with these because they are really satisfying to play with.
They're the best you'll find, that's for sure.
I've no doubt. Listen, John Trousdale, thank you so much for joining us from Just Jigsaws. Great to see you here. Coming up next is the second part of that interview with Nigel Farage. There he is with me earlier. Among other things, we cover his thoughts on a Reform Tory general election pact and what happened when he met the late Pope Francis. Stay tuned.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's quite a mixed picture across southern Europe as we go through the next couple of days. Western parts mostly dry, but in the east we have some heavy, thundery rain. There's the risk of frequent lightning, some large hail, gusty winds. Rainfall totals of around 50 to 75 millimetres in just a few hours could cause some flooding. Like I said, though, further west, a lot of dry weather, and here it is going to stay mostly fine as we go through the next couple of days. In fact, across the Canary Islands, we're going to see our temperatures rising into the high 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good evening. Here's your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There will still be a few lingering showers for a little while yet, but most places will turn dry overnight, and with some clear skies in the west, it will turn a bit chilly for some. Currently, we have high pressure to the north and to the south, and low pressure both to the east and the west. As a result, we're in something called a col, under which our weather is going to settle down, and so we're seeing most of those showers dying out and clearing away. That being said, there will be quite a bit of cloud overnight across eastern and some southern parts, and this cloud could bring a few spots of rain as well. But under some clearer skies, particularly towards the west, things are going to turn a little chilly. Some prone spots may see a touch of frost, and there could be a few patches of mist and fog developing too. But as we start tomorrow morning then, a fairly cloudy story across many southern areas, perhaps a few glimmers of brightness across Devon and Somerset, and also some parts of Wales. There should be some sunny spells, decent amount of sunny spells across Northern Ireland, northwest England and central and western Scotland, but the further east you are, the greater chance you have of those cloudy skies, and with that the greater chance of a few spots of rain, but nothing especially heavy. Now as we go through the day, through the morning into the afternoon, I am expecting some of this cloud to break up and burn away a little bit, but it is going to linger in a few places, so it is going to stay quite grey for some areas, particularly across central southern England, some eastern parts of Scotland. Elsewhere, a bit of sunshine developing, and if you get this sunshine, well, it's not going to feel too bad. Temperatures peaking in the mid to high teens Celsius. But we have some cloudy, wet and blustery weather pushing in from the west later on, and this is going to affect particularly Northern Ireland as we go through Friday, but also fringing into western Scotland and maybe western parts of England and Wales. Further east, a fine day, plenty of decent sunny weather on offer, and that's the case through this weekend. Towards the northwest there will be some rain at times, drier towards the southeast and warm too.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Christopher Hope. Now, let's return to the rest of my interview with the Reform UK leader, Nigel Farage. We discuss the potential for a Reform UK Tory pact ahead of the next general election and the latest developments in the Russia-Ukraine peace talks, and his reaction to the UK government's potentially difficult trading fishing rights for a defence agreement with the European Union. And it's finally what the late Pope Francis said to him when they met. Other things to do with Reform UK. Overnight we've learned that Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary, was recorded saying that one way or another he wants to make sure Reform and the Conservatives do not compete at the next general election. He wants to bring together this coalition of support. You're leader of Reform UK. Do you agree with him?
If I agreed with him, I think my supporters would be revolted.
In revolt and revolted?
I mean, absolutely, yeah, both. I agree. I mean, you know, we had 14 years of the Conservative Party. Taxes the highest since 1947. The state growing, the civil service growing, mass immigration at levels even Tony Blair couldn't have dreamt of. I mean, they let people down by every single measure. And when it comes to Brexit, everything from fishing to financial services feels actually they didn't get anything like what they expected.
They were blown off course by COVID, by the Ukraine war.
They didn't.
By Brexit, which wasn't their policy.
No,
you know all this.
They didn't believe in it. They didn't believe in it. They used it in 2019 as a political opportunity. They didn't believe in it. And that's why.
But his point is, I want to unite the right to get your policies, broadly your policies, with the Tories into power and keep Labour out. Are you willing to sacrifice that?
As you will see in the next few weeks. And as I predicted, in the early hours of the 5th of July in Clacton, I said, we've dealt with the Conservative Party, we're now coming for Labour. We are coming for Labour. Those Labour voters, some of whom did vote Conservative in 2019, will never do so again.
Just for clarity, yes or no, would you do a deal with Robert Jenrick or the Tories?
I would only do a deal with people who I could trust. I don't trust them.
Any of them? James Cleverly, any other future leader?
No, I don't trust them politically.
No deal. Now, just looking at your policies, Nigel Farage, you want to nationalise British Steel, you support the unions, you want to lift tax-free allowances, you criticise net zero. Are you the Liberal Democrats in disguise? Because you're trying to appeal to different parts of the country with different policies.
No, we're just common sense. And
but
it's
you're doing
interesting,
different things for different audiences, like Lib Dems do.
Well, no. Richard Tice and I went to the plant in Scunthorpe. We were told very clearly there were 3 days left to save primary steel manufacture in Britain. We stood outside the plant, we made a call to nationalise immediately, otherwise the Chinese owners were only too happy to see it closed down. And the government very much reacted to what we'd done. It is a vital national strategic asset. And when it comes to taxation, numbers, everybody condemned us at the last election for our contract with the people. The sums didn't add up. Today, the OBR have produced debt figures showing the country's in much deeper trouble and that Rachel Reeves is 25 billion out already. Interestingly, in the sub-notes, quantitative easing, which we talked about, if you remember, in our contract with the people, last year, the Bank of England lost 36 billion on quantitative easing. We put 35 in our contract. So I tell you what, people criticise us, condemn us. We've actually been right on a lot of things.
But you're confusing politically. You're going left and right, tacking this way and that, aren't you?
No, there is something called the national interest.
Okay.
And I want Britain to reindustrialise. I worked for 22 years in the metals industry, right? I worked in London. My customers were people that made copper wire, people that had lead rolling mills. These were people I dealt with. They've nearly all closed down, Chris. And now we're almost at the end of being a heavy manufacturing country, mostly because of our obsession with net zero and energy prices. And if the government has to intervene in the short term to save some of these industries so we can look for better pastures in the future, that makes sense.
Despite the costs, £700,000 a day lost.
If you believe that figure. I don't believe that figure.
Okay. And overnight, Nigel Farage, there are reports that the US want to allow Russia to hang on to the lands that it has won in Ukraine. Is that the right approach? It feels like appeasement.
Wars end in one of two ways, don't they, generally? One is one side gets annihilated, surrenders and accepts pretty much whatever they're given, or the other is you have a negotiated peace settlement. You know, you could argue that the civil war in Northern Ireland was ended by both sides making some degree of concessions. I don't think this plan really is acceptable because it just rewards Putin too much. I want to see peace.
But not at any price.
But not at any price.
And just finally, Ursula von der Leyen's in town this week, meeting with the PM possibly Thursday. Should we do a deal on fish to ensure the security of this country and work more closely with the European Union on security?
Your question is completely misplaced.
That's what's on the table.
I'm really appalled. I'm the only member of Parliament that has a financial stake in the commercial fishing industry, which I do.
What's your stake?
I own a commercial fishing boat.
Do you?
I do. I do. I don't run it myself. I'm rather too busy, but I do. So I am heavily invested in both the commercial and recreational side of angling in this country.
Is it an angling boat or a fishing boat that catches fish?
Commercial fishing boat.
And how much fish do you land a year?
Well, I won't go any further than what I've gone because you know.
What's it called, the boat?
I'm not going into any of that because it just wouldn't be fair.
Okay.
But I do own a boat. I have a skipper that runs that boat, and I'm not making any money on it, I can promise you.
No.
The rules and regulations put upon our small commercial fleet since Brexit are worse than they were as members of the European Union. The whole thing is a disaster. And to think we're going to surrender even more, well, I can tell you the environmental damage that is being done to our seabeds and fish stocks in the Eastern English Channel has worsened since Brexit considerably. And the very thought that Starmer might sign us up for an EU military pact is totally unacceptable at every level. A European wing of NATO with nation states, let's sit round the table and talk about it. Anything to do with the European Union, and the answer must be no.
And of course, the Pope's funeral is this weekend, and you said in a post on Twitter that you met him.
So the Pope, Francis, he'd not been long the Pope, and he was invited to a sitting of the European Parliament in Strasbourg. And of course, they were all terribly excited because they imagined the Pope was going to be very pro-EU and all the rest of it. And so the 6 of us who were group leaders lined up to meet the Pope. And we were introduced by the President of the Parliament, a German called Schulz. And they were very annoyed, because the Pope spent longer talking to me than he spent talking to anybody. And we had really quite a good laugh and an exchange of views. He then got up and gave a speech in the Parliament where he said, why do you move every month from Brussels to Strasbourg? Why have you got all these big buildings? Why do you all pay yourself so much money? It was wonderful. I loved every minute of it.
It was a Farage-iste, a Brexiteer almost.
So after that, I actually had a figurine of the Pope on my desk in my office in the European Parliament.
Well, Nigel Farage, thank you for joining us today on GBN Tonight. And once again, happy St George's Day.
And to you.
Nigel Farage there talking to me earlier today on St George's Day. Now, to get reaction to that, I'm joined by Mark Oaten, the former Liberal Democrat MP for Winchester. Mark Oaten, thank you for joining us tonight. I asked Nigel Farage there whether he was the Liberal Democrats in disguise. I did that because they're spending money and cutting taxes and doing all sorts of things, which I always think the Lib Dems do in different parts of the country, nationalising British Steel, trying to cut taxes here, privatise the NHS. Do you worry they're getting their queue lines from your party?
Well, I mean, first of all, you have to say he's great value, isn't he? That was a fascinating interview, not least that he owns a boat. I mean, that was just extraordinary. I'm assuming it's not a small boat, and I'd love to know what its name is. But in terms of the Lib Dems and this picking and choosing policies around in different areas, look, I think what Nigel Farage is facing is a real dilemma. He's got his party to 20%. He knows what his core vote is, but somehow he's got to get that vote up to 30%. And he's realised to do that, it's not easy. You have to start looking at different policies which maybe take you away from that comfortable base that he's worked from. And that's going to be a challenge. And that's why I think you'll see in the year ahead him putting out policies which don't naturally feel like they're reform policies, because he's trying to broaden that church. And that, of course, could always undermine that core support that he has. It's fascinating, this interview. It demonstrates just how ambitious he is for the party, that he has to start thinking outside of the normal comfort areas.
Yes. I don't know if you saw today's Prime Minister's questions, Mark. I was fascinated to see Keir Starmer have a go at Ed Davey. Now, that hasn't happened since the election, but he said to him, he's sick, or he basically said, he's sick of the Lib Dems not backing tax-raising measures, but spending lots of money. I find that interesting that he's sort of tolerated the Lib Dems with their 70 MPs until now, but he's losing patience with them.
Well, he's probably losing patience because he knows that on May the 1st there's a round of local elections, and he knows from his private polling the Lib Dems are probably going to do quite well in those elections. Yeah. So you've got a lot of election play taking place here. The country is probably not aware there are many elections taking place, but up and down the country, these elections are going to be absolutely fascinating. There's a lot at stake for all the parties. The Lib Dems need to build on that 72 seats. Labour are really scared they're going to get a wipeout. But the real battle line is going to be between Reform and the Conservatives. I think that'll be fascinating to see whether Reform have learnt how you can run local elections, because that's all about grassroots work rather than Nigel Farage appearing on television all the time.
Well, thank you, Mark Oaten. Great to see you on the show tonight, and do come back again. Now, joining me back in the studio, which is to discuss this, is my panel, of course, the former Labour MP, Lloyd Russell Moyle, and the former Conservative MP and former Government Whip, Heather Wheeler. To you first, then, Heather Wheeler. He says no chance of a deal with Reform. Should there be one? With the Tory party?
Right, well, first of all, let's talk about the 1st of May. So, at a local level, it's always down to the local leader whether they do a deal or not.
But there's a general election conversation about this pact.
I think it's completely stupid that the right wing should split, because the only people that are going to do well out of that is Labour coming through the middle. Fortunately, Labour are in such a bad state, people aren't going to vote for them anyway, with great respect, Lloyd. You know, so I don't want it to get to this point. We're what, 2.5, 3 years away from a general? Yeah. So I think it's a question for the future.
Is it a question of when, not if, the two parties come together?
I think let's see what happens with the local elections, because that will give you a much better litmus test.
Again, about the general election talking here, but Lloyd Russell Moyle, is Heather Wheeler right? Will these two parties at some point look like they may have to come together?
Well, I think GB News, in that nice puff piece that you did for the Reform Party, is doing its very best to ensure... It was a great interview with him. Great puff piece for him. Doing their best to try and develop...
We interview all the leaders on these shows.
To try and develop this convergence between the two. When I speak to Nigel, and I always say, I think that what your long-term strategy is the Reform Canada Conservative Party model, which is where the Reform Party ended up taking over the Canadian Conservatives after they destroyed themselves, effectively. They took the name, but everything else was Reform. And for many years, Nigel has always, even when it was UKIP before, would have a wry smile at that and kind of say, well, that would be the dream. Now he says something very different, which is actually the Conservative brand is so broken in many parts of this country that I think it's not just about whether he trusts, it's about whether actually it's in his advantage to do a deal with the Conservatives, or actually it's in the advantage, really, to annihilate the Conservatives and just replace them. But that's what his aim is, quite clearly. Yes. And I don't think anyone should be in any doubt that he is a Conservative wanting to replace Conservative Party. It's just, does he think that he can do it better and more brutally than the Conservatives?
Yes, how the really can it happen? I mean, annihilation.
I think you're going to find Reform going in with Labour some of the time.
Now, tonight, Matt Goodwin, you're here to State of the Nation. What's on your show?
Is Labour the party of patriotism? We're going to be debating that with a former Cabinet Minister. We're going to be talking more about this Robert Jenrick suggestion there should be a pact between Reform and the Tories, but we've got party insiders to talk to us about that. Now, that new migrant crime bombshell from the Home Office are going to be releasing new data. What more data do we actually need the state to be releasing to British people, British taxpayers, British citizens? And lastly, this bombshell new study exposing the quangocracy in Britain, just how much money we are spending behind the scenes on unelected bodies.
Thank you, Matt Goodwin. That's tonight, State of the Nation with Matt Goodwin. First to weather, here is Alex Burkle.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Here's your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There will still be a few lingering showers for a little while yet, but most places will turn dry overnight, and with some clear skies in the west, it will turn a bit chilly for some. Currently, we have high pressure to the north and to the south, and low pressure both to the east and the west. As a result, we're in something called a col, under which our weather is going to settle down, and so we're seeing most of those showers dying out and clearing away. That being said, there will be quite a bit of cloud overnight across eastern and some southern parts, and this cloud could bring a few spots of rain as well. But under some clearer skies, particularly towards the west, things are going to turn a little chilly. Some prone spots may see a touch of frost, and there could be a few patches of mist and fog developing too. But as we start tomorrow morning then, a fairly cloudy story across many southern areas, perhaps a few glimmers of brightness across Devon and Somerset, and also some parts of Wales. There should be some sunny spells, decent amount of sunny spells across Northern Ireland, northwest England and central and western Scotland, but the further east you are, the greater chance you have of those cloudy skies, and with that, the greater chance of a few spots of rain, but nothing especially heavy. Now, as we go through the day, through the morning into the afternoon, I am expecting some of this cloud to break up and burn away a little bit, but it is going to linger in a few places, so it is going to stay quite grey for some areas, particularly across central southern England, some eastern parts of Scotland. Elsewhere, a bit of sunshine developing, and if you get this sunshine, well, it's not going to feel too bad. Temperatures peaking in the mid to high teens Celsius. But we have some cloudy, wet and blustery weather pushing in from the west later on, and this is going to affect particularly Northern Ireland as we go through Friday, but also fringing into western Scotland and maybe western parts of England and Wales. Further east, a fine day, plenty of decent sunny weather on offer, and that's the case through this weekend. Towards the northwest, there will be some rain at times, drier towards the southeast and warm too.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with Skyroof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. You're watching State of the Nation tonight on GB News with me, Matt Goodwin. On tonight's show, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has claimed that the Labour Party is a party of patriotism. Tonight, I will reveal why this is very much not the case. Meanwhile, a leaked recording of Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick has revealed the inside plan for a Tory reform pact. But tonight, I'm going to be talking to top party insiders about whether this is even necessary. As the Home Office is set to reveal migrant crime data for the very first time, I'm going to be asking a former immigration minister on the show tonight about how the repeated betrayal of voters has destroyed public trust in the system. Plus, I'm going to be joined by the man behind a new campaign to expose Britain's deep state that is costing you, the British taxpayer, an absolute fortune. These numbers are bananas. Is it time for a UK Doge? And that's State of the Nation tonight with me, Matt Goodwin. Now, I'll also be joined tonight by my top panel, Deputy Editor of Conservative Home, Henry Hill, and journalist Benjamin Butterworth. As ever, let me know your views at gbnews.com/your say. You can reach us on X at gbnews, at GoodwinMJ. But now it's time for the News Bulletin with Tatiana Sanchez.
Matt, thank you very much and good evening. The top stories: inter-gang rivalries have led to an alarming rise in migrant violence as 8 illegal immigrants have arrived in the UK with stab wounds in the last 12 months. The tensions come as thousands of migrants prepare for a huge summer surge in small boat crossings. Just this week, 1 migrant was stabbed to death and 2 others seriously injured in separate incidents around Calais. One senior maritime security source told GB News the increase in violence is extremely concerning. Elsewhere, the UK government's borrowing soared to almost £152 billion last year, the second highest in a decade. New ONS figures reveal that's £14.6 billion more than predicted, piling the pressure on already stretched public finances. Economists say the country ended the year on a poor footing, while now hurtling towards further challenges with US President Donald Trump's trade tariffs. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has warned of a changing world and President Trump for the UK exceeding borrowing expectations.
The world has changed and we can see that all around us. And what the UK is able to offer is political, financial, economic stability in a world that is very volatile at the moment. I think that is a huge plus for the UK, and we are open as a country for business, trade and investment. And we've taken on board, as a new government, less than a year in, the feedback from businesses, both domestic and international investors, about the things that hold back investment or delay investment.
In other news, the Prime Minister has accused Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch of being a spectator, not a leader on women's rights this afternoon, before saying it was time to lower the temperature on the trans debate. It follows a Supreme Court ruling defining a woman as an adult human female based on biological sex. The Prime Minister, who once said trans women are women, now says the ruling brings clarity. This afternoon, Badenoch urged him to apologise to ex-Labour MP Rosie Duffield, calling her very brave for speaking out before leaving the party.
Tells people what they want to hear. He only tells people what they want to hear. He is a weather vane who twists in the wind. He cheered an ideology that denied safe spaces to women and girls because he thought it was cool to do so. He hounded a brave female MP out of his party for telling the truth he accepts now. And now he is hiding behind the Supreme Court judgment. And isn't that because he doesn't know what he actually believes?
And finally, Pope Francis' coffin has been transferred today to St. Peter's Basilica, where it lies in state ahead of his funeral on Saturday. The coffin departed from the chapel of the Casa Santa Marta and proceeded through Santa Marta Square and the square of the Roman protomartyrs, entering the basilica through the central door. Prince William will attend the funeral on Saturday, marking his first time representing the monarch at a global funeral. He'll be joined by world leaders, including the Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer and the US President Donald Trump. If you're watching us on television now, you're seeing live pictures from inside St. Peter's Basilica, where mourners have been gathering all day as the Vatican expects up to 250,000 mourners at the service for the People's Pope. And these are some live shots from just outside, where thousands of mourners have been gathering. Those are the latest headlines. For now, more from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to State of the Nation tonight with me, Matt Goodwin, and a very, very happy St George's Day to you and your loved ones. So the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has tried to claim today that the Labour Party is the party of patriotism. Speaking at his Downing Street St George's Day celebration, he claimed that the Reform Party are a bunch of moaners and that he's glad Labour celebrates British history. But is the Labour Party really the party of patriotism? Is it patriotic to open up our southern border to illegal crossings, removing any deterrent and letting illegal migrants run to record numbers? Is it patriotic to decriminalise illegal migration and grant the right to stay in the UK to the vast majority of people whose first act on entering our country is to break our laws? If Labour was patriotic, would it be handing over our sovereign territory to an ally of China? The Chagos Islands deal is set to be one of the most bizarre pieces of diplomacy